It's August 2003, and Skype, the revolutionary video and voice calling app, officially launches. The following year, the app's registered users count reaches 8 figures. A few more years go by, and one of the most popular companies in the world ends up spending billions and billions of dollars to acquire Skype, which has hundreds of millions of active users at this point. Skype is a household name now, being used all around the world for both personal and professional purposes. But fast forward to 2025, and Skype's parent company announces that Skype will be permanently shutting down. This comes as a surprise to no one though, as Skype is nowhere near as popular as it once was. Due to reasons that I will go over in this video, Skype today has been largely forgotten, merely a relic of the past. But how exactly did Skype fall to the point of being shut down? Let's find out. Before we go over the rise and fall of Skype, we need to first learn a little bit more about the company. The app that would eventually be known as Skype was founded in 2003 by a pair of entrepreneurs from Sweden and Denmark. The actual software was then created by 4 Estonian software engineers, who were all former classmates of the pair of entrepreneurs. The service was originally called Skyper, which stood for Sky Peer-to-Peer. However, it was shortened to Skype before it was released. Somewhere along the way before the app was actually released, the entrepreneurs and engineers realized they could greatly reduce costs and make their service exponentially smoother by using a brand new technology called Voice over IP. But I'll go more in depth about that shortly. Skype officially launched on August 29th, 2003, and received over 10,000 downloads that first day. This extremely successful first day showed Skype's team that the desire for their service was extremely strong, so they put their head down and continued building and improving. By the end of the following year in 2004, Skype had surpassed 11 million registered users. But why exactly was Skype growing so fast? Let's get into the rise of the company. My first and sole reason for the rise of Skype is the fact that the company was the pioneer of internet video and voice calling and instant messaging. Now, this is obviously a super broad statement, so let's dive into the specifics. Firstly, Skype bypassed traditional phone networks and their associated costs. Prior to Skype and other similar services, you would generally have to pay your phone carrier for a certain amount of minutes per month that you could use on phone calls. Additionally, sending and receiving text messages actually costs money, and then if you wanted to make international calls or texts, that would cost even more money. As unbelievable as it sounds today, this was the reality of the cell phone industry at the time that Skype was released. Skype was able to bypass these costs and difficulties by utilizing a new technology that was created just a few years prior to Skype's release that was called Voice over IP. While traditional phone calls were made using the phone carrier's networks and cell towers, Voice over IP allowed users with internet-connected devices to make calls over the internet. It made the entire calling process much easier and, more importantly for Skype, much cheaper, because they didn't have to pay phone carriers to allow their users to communicate with each other. Skype was also extremely simple and reliable from a consumer standpoint. At a time when the internet was still a fairly new concept and confusing to a lot of people, Skype's intuitive UI allowed users to easily use and navigate the platform. Looking at these screenshots from various years throughout the 2000s, you can see just how simple the platform was. There were minimal buttons in the very early years so as not to be overwhelming, and as the platform expanded and added features, everything was neatly organized. You could easily find your past conversations, the options to make calls, and your friends' profiles. Skype quickly became a household name. Families used it to call each other from all over the globe, businesses used it to save time and unnecessary travel, and teachers used it when virtual classrooms were necessary. In 2005, eBay acquired Skype for $2.6 billion. Not bad for a company that was founded just 2 years prior. Unfortunately though, just a couple years after this acquisition, eBay acknowledged that Skype had not performed as expected. eBay subsequently ended up selling Skype to private equity firm Silver Lake in 2009 for $2.75 billion, just 5% more than what they had paid for it 4 years prior. But despite the multiple changes in ownership and slow valuation growth, Skype was still growing extremely strong in terms of users. By 2011, Skype had over 660 million registered users, with over 170 million users using the platform every month. However, that same year in 2011, Skype would undergo a massive change that would mark the beginning of the end for the revolutionary internet calling company. But before we go over that, please like the video if you're enjoying and make sure to subscribe as well. These videos take a long time to make and I would really appreciate any and all support. My first reason for the fall of Skype is the Microsoft acquisition. In October 2011, Microsoft acquired Skype for $8.5 billion, valuing the company 209% higher than 2 years prior when Silver Lake purchased it. But why would one of the most successful companies ever created buying Skype for $8.5 billion be a bad thing? What possibly could Microsoft have done to Skype to hurt the platform so much? Well, the problem wasn't what Microsoft did with Skype, but more so what they did not do with Skype. Microsoft eventually tossed Skype to the curb and completely neglected it, failing to ever really update the platform to compete with similar emerging platforms. Microsoft instead began devoting the majority of their resources to pushing their all-new video and voice calling platform, Microsoft Teams. The rumored reason for this change of direction from Microsoft was due to Microsoft employees encountering countless bugs in Skype's code that were extremely hard and time-consuming to track down and fix. This frustrated the employees, and after a certain point, Microsoft internally decided that building a new application from scratch would be much easier, and thus Microsoft Teams was born. Microsoft at that point most likely was largely using Skype to help build Teams from the ground up. Again, this has always been rumored and has never been confirmed by Microsoft. But just taking a step back to look at the entire situation, it makes perfect sense. If Skype was such a good application and was so easy to maintain, why would Microsoft toss it to the side and devote so much of their time and manpower to building a new platform? By the time that Microsoft Teams officially launched in 2017, Skype's growth had pretty much slowed to a halt, something that was indirectly confirmed by Microsoft themselves in their decision to stop reporting on how many active users Skype had. And as time went on, Skype encountered another problem that made their situation even worse, and which is my next reason for the fall of the company. My next reason for the fall of Skype is that the platform was generally poor quality and had a bad UI. This is not so much due to Microsoft changing the way the platform looked and operated, but more so technology rapidly evolving and Microsoft failing to update Skype. I did a lot of research into how specifically the technology advanced that caused Skype to become subpar. However, it was honestly really confusing. So in the simplest terms possible, just understand that Skype was originally built a long time ago in a completely different technological environment, which made it difficult to update to work smoothly on newer devices. Skype was originally built before smartphones even existed. All of a sudden, everyone had super advanced iPhones, tablets of all sizes, and insanely strong laptops and PCs that they were trying to use Skype on. This resulted in the platform becoming clunky, slow, glitchy, and generally not user-friendly. Skype's poor quality and bad UI also adds more validity to the rumors I was just talking about regarding Microsoft being unable to constantly fix the bugs that they were encountering with Skype. It would not be surprising at all if a lot of the issues that Microsoft engineers were encountering with Skype were due to the app originally being built in 2003. If a lot of the core code of Skype was largely incompatible with modern-day devices, Microsoft shifting their focus to Microsoft Teams makes perfect sense. My next reason for the fall of Skype is the pandemic. At a time when everyone turned to video calling in order to work, stay in touch with friends and family, and continue their education, you would assume a service like Skype would benefit greatly. However, this was far from the truth. By the end of 2020, Skype reported having 40 million daily active users. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, Microsoft Teams reported 75 million daily users, and Zoom had 300 million. The reason that the pandemic was a negative for Skype was that it revealed all the issues that the platform had. At the same time, it propelled Skype's competitors to unprecedented levels of success, leaving Skype in the dust. And this brings me to my final reason for the fall of Skype, the fact that there were a ton of better alternative platforms. When Skype was first introduced to the world, there was no other platform like it. Video calling and internet voice calling was still an extremely new concept, and anyone who would have needed this type of service would have used Skype. Fast forward almost 2 decades later to when the pandemic hit though, and Skype was just one of countless platforms that offered video calling and internet voice calling, and all of these other platforms were much more advanced than Skype. I'm talking services like FaceTime, WhatsApp, and Discord, as well as other services that have already been mentioned like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. WhatsApp and FaceTime became the best services for messaging and calling experiences. Zoom and Teams became the best services for professional workplace communication. Discord became by far the best service for gamers to call and message each other on. And Skype, well, Skype was left with no real place in the industry. The video calling industry reached a record market size of over $10.2 billion in 2024, and is expected to continue growing every year. Unfortunately, Skype represents only an extremely small amount of market share in the industry. In 2024, Zoom held the overwhelming majority of market share in the industry with 55.4%, followed by Microsoft Teams with 20.9%. Skype came in 8th place, holding just 2.25% of the market share. In 2024 as well, Zoom reported an average of 732 million monthly active users. Microsoft Teams reported over 320 million. And Skype, well, Microsoft hasn't released an update to Skype's active user count since back in 2020 when they revealed that Skype had 40 million daily active users. So, considering that Skype today holds just over 2% of the market share, Microsoft is most likely secretive about Skype's active users because the figure has continued to fall. In February 2025, Microsoft announced that they were officially shutting down Skype, marking the end of the revolutionary video calling platform after 21 years. Microsoft stated they plan to officially shut down Skype's servers on May 5th, so depending on when you're watching this, Skype may already be gone. Despite the significant influence that Skype had on the video calling industry and the massive popularity that the company once had, the service shutting down will most likely make little to no difference in the landscape of the industry. Due to their falling active users figures for the reasons outlined in this video, specifically the rise of newer and better video and voice calling services, most people will not even notice that Skype has shut down. After all, they made up just a little over 2% of the market share in 2024. Skype finally being shut down is a reminder that despite how successful and revolutionary some services and apps are, none of them are immune to the constant evolution and advancement of technology. If you made it this far, please like the video and subscribe for more.